Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special edition of your favorite podcast.
Riffin with Griffin, yeah.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Riffin with Griffin. Riffin with Griffin, yeah. Riffin with Griffin, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Riffin with Griffin. Crossover episode with my other podcast, Gen2Gen. I talk about it, but I want to show the Riffin with Griffin audience what that podcast is all about. So I'm going to play an episode of that one today. But, you know, thanks for being here. So we're going to do it. It's me, my buddy Matthew Espinosa, and the great Dane Cook. So welcome to Gen2Gen.
Riffin with Griffin, yeah.
Yes, welcome to Riffin with Griffin Special Edition Gen2Gen. It's a podcast with me and my buddy Matthew Espinosa. I'm 50, he's 25, and we talk about different things, and we had some guests. So we have about 30-something episodes. We're trying to get some traction, so I've decided I'm going to do this. I'm going to play one of our it was a fun episode with the great Dane Cook, and I just had Dane on recently, and I thought, you know what? He's got his special out, Above It All, and so let's do a replay of the Gen2Gen episode. And as usual, thanks for being here, guys. Hit the subscribe. You know what I mean? Hit the subscribe. What else? I'm on Twitch most days. Hit me up on Twitch, and if you want to help support the podcast, you can. You can help support on Patreon, and you can do it. You can do it. So nothing really else to report. Next week, I'll be back talking about a bunch of stuff that's going on in the world, like this Kyrie Irving thing, follow up with some more reviews and previews. Watching this great new show, I think it's The Bastard Son of the Devil, a new show on Netflix. It's out of Europe. I think it's like a British show, but it's really good. So I'll talk to you about that next week. And look out for also the new version of King and the Sting. Make sure you guys check that podcast out too, because that got a big surprise coming, big changes to that one coming. So anyways, right now, let's just get to it. So this is an episode of Gen2Gen with me, Matthew Espinosa, and we had a guest on, the great Dane Cook. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Gen2Gen, episode 5.
Yes, Matthew Espinosa, and I'm Erik Griffin.
Erik Griffin.
And my longtime friend.
Can I not talk? I'm being introduced.
Can we introduce you? Can we? Man.
I was like, do I just sit here in the middle and just like...
What if we never talk to you?
How long would I wait? No, I wouldn't wait. I'd jump in pretty quick.
Eventually just gets out. Just leaves.
Like, you guys are probably going.
All right, Dane Cook, everybody. Dane Cook.
Woo.
Hello. Yes. It's Gen2Gen. It's his generation versus our generation because we're the same age.
Verse?
Yeah.
Are we fighting?
Versus,
yes. Yeah, we do an arm
it's
wrestle.
a duel. Every episode starts off with a good old arm wrestle.
We decided to do this thing because we learn from each other, which is something that people don't normally do.
Right.
So we've had a bunch of young people on, and I've learned from them, and I thought let's get some other people on. And you guys are actually pretty similar in my eyes in terms of like you really have a great work ethic in terms of like just a great work ethic. He knew how to once he got into the social media, boom, it took off. And you were the same way.
And what do you think was the very first... I'm not going to ask you a question yet.
I feel like
I'm still... Are we still in intro mode?
No. You go. We're in it now. We're in.
Our intro usually lasts around 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Usually we're going.
I feel like it's pretty quick. People who are early adopters of understanding like oh, this is how I want to connect with people, but not just in a superfluous way, like I'm selling you on something, but like, let me go on this journey of my artistic growth with an audience of people who will hopefully bring more people into the fray. Was that what you were discovering right away, that you had that quick route, relationship with people?
For sure, because, growing up, I always looked at actors and writers and all that stuff, and it has this mysterious tone to them. Before the internet, it had, unless you're seeing them on the screen, you're not seeing them out, so it started becoming this, the more we know about you, the more we like you type thing. And then you also have to balance this accessibility that you're giving them so you could still have your own private life. So yeah, I noticed that at a pretty early age that people enjoyed that personality that I was giving them. So I kind of really dove into that, but it started getting a little messy when I didn't know how much access, like I, mentioned.
That's right. How much till the magic of who you've become on the screen is diluted because they know what you use to brush your teeth and
and what pillow you sleep on and this and all that.
That's kind of an interesting jumping off point, because I think as a person who also, like yourself, was like, oh, this is a portal. Right? To finding audience, to building that fan base. But how do I keep the magic of TMI, so that when they want to come see my show, or they want to see me in a film role or take on something different? Like, what is too much social media?
I just think right now we're at a state where we're changing the rules as we go. And I think that there is such a thing as there is too much, or maybe that's now just enough. Maybe that's the normal, because, the mysterious of, I don't know if some of the stars from our childhood that were super mega stars could have been super mega stars with social media.
Right.
They did it differently. I don't know if Michael Jackson would have been as big. I don't know if OJ would have been as big. Right. I don't know if, you know what I mean? There's Michael Jordan even. Could Michael Jordan have dealt with social media the way, say, LeBron James is dealing with social media? They have a different path of superstardom.
There's also that, who would have had foot and mouth disease to where they said too much or put a bad onus on their brand or whatever, because maybe not everybody knows how to have that conversation, man. Not everybody's good at editing on the fly like that.
Now, that's the interesting word you said, brand. So were you always aware of your brand? Like when it first caught, because you want to talk about ground floor, okay? Yeah. This guy's ground floor, right? I'm talking about aware. You saw MySpace as a way of being like, oh, you know what? I can get butts in the seats with this. I can engage with my fans. Like, whatever the thought process was, it was a lot of things.
Yes.
That now people just take for granted.
Yeah.
So were you brand building at that point? Did you
I was, but it's tying into what you're also putting up, which was I had 10 years on the road before the internet really kind of caught on. And so I had all these college age kids that were coming up, or people that see me in clubs. And now I finally had this portal where a hub, right? Everybody can come onto this MySpace page. Yeah. And so right off the bat, I found that I had several thousand people that were finding me right away. As soon as the interaction started, within a week, I was like, this is it. 1 week, and I went, this is going to continue to grow. I know that my hub is going to just, if I put out good content. So immediately I was thinking branding, because I put on my very first mission statement: if you're going to be a fan of mine, if you're going to follow me here, don't follow me unless you're a fan of risks, because I'm going to take a lot of them. It was a excuse for me to kind of pick up a little bit and say, I'm going to do some stuff that's not like the same, pattern from other comics.
For sure.
That gave me a bit of a okay, that's all right if somebody taps out. And yet I felt it also allowed people to go, oh, what is this journey going to be? And that wasn't a one-trick pony start. It was that the ability to go, I'm going to grow and change as a person. As I'm going to evolve. I'm going to be ignorant sometimes. I'm going to learn. I'm going to fuck up. Hopefully they'll let me grow, express regret, talk about, highlight real moments if I want to, in a way that's not I'm not boasting, but I am in terms of branding. I always thought of it like we are on this journey. I don't think I ever used that. I didn't go, I got this thing. I booked. Guys, look what we did. Yeah. We did this. And I made them a part of that kind of production team for me.
Now, when you say...
so I didn't call it branding, but I definitely was understanding. I'm growing up with a generation that's this is their golden age of television is now, that's what they used to call it, by the way, the golden age of television way back, because there was nothing else. But this was the golden age of the next thing, and I knew I was a part of it.
So, do you feel though that there was like a little bit of like a leeway, a little bit of rope being a comic, like when you say, hey, I'm going to make some mistakes. Also, the times.
Right.
Because if you think now.
Right.
Because I would say that Matt is very aware of the things that he says. Like you're not gonna catch him on the internet doing some willy-nilly stuff, right? And somebody being like, "I can't believe."
I was just about to say, "What's willy-willy?" That's
willy-nilly.
Willy.
There's willy-nilly. There's willy-willy.
Willy-willy style. So I feel like and him just being aware of that.
Yeah.
He's very, he's very. He's like, hey, this kind of person I am. Comes from a good family.
But are you
different?
But are you then doing that to a point where this is going to be a tough thing to answer? Like everything's shut off and you're looking in the mirror. Is your integrity intact where you're like, I'm really living as honest as I possibly can while things are rolling? Or are you going, I'm a little aware of things that I'm saying and doing? Mm-hmm. And does it make you feel like when everything goes off, do you go and breathe in a sigh of like, oh, I feel great? Or do you go, ooh?
Well, I think at the end of the day, I really do understand the responsibility I have with the audience I have and also understanding the age of the audience I have. At the end of the day, I'm not perfect and I'm not always making the right decisions, but at the end of the day, I know what I can put on the internet and what I shouldn't put on the internet for the most part. And I know that if I can make a video and make someone laugh without cursing, for instance, or making a crude joke, then I'll go for that because I know I have a long career and I can do that at a certain point eventually. Mm-hmm. But right now, I know that there's younger kids watching me, and I just know that's my responsibility. And that's just just who I am personally. Not everyone wants to take that on, and that's fine. That's just who I am. That's my parents have been like, have just raised me that way. So
you could probably even look at, kind of unfortunately, it's like some of we grew up with like the Disney kid generation, and some of them didn't make it out alive because they were so homogenized. And so one branding thing,
one brand.
They were afraid to grow up, or maybe the people around them didn't want to see them change.
Well, it's also a money thing too, man. It's like this is your brand. Like look at Hannah Montana. Look at Miley Cyrus.
I was gonna say Miley Cyrus.
You're like if you're making millions of dollars being this thing,
right?
And then you go and you're a kid. And then like you're going through puberty and you're going through like, hey, can I not be a kid anymore? Can I not be a kid anymore? Can I like boys? Can I like this? Can I go out on and then she just went. Of course, we just witnessed her whole rebellious.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, she was so famous. We got to witness it to the point where she's at this place now where she's just like at a totally different place. I've seen her on podcasts and stuff, and I go, "Oh man, you've grown from all of this." And it's like,
it seemed to inform her,
right?
And some people. I don't know. Maybe not everybody's ready to grow the way she did at those moments, but we've seen it's a detriment. So to some people, that too much of that. I watched the Charlie and the D'Amelio.
Oh yeah, the D'Amelio.
I watched that documentary.
I just said the D'Amelio twins. They're not twins.
No, right,
sisters.
So I watched I happened to see like 3 or 4 episodes were on Hulu, and I had it on in my office. And next thing you know, I'm watching it, and I found them to be very. Like they were almost oversharing, but in a way that I was like, wow, this is probably very healthy because they're letting it all out in that kind of moment. Yeah. And I felt like respect. I respected that it was like, okay, some people might tap out and be like, oh, this is not. I just wanted the TikTok dancing, and I
just wanted to do the surface level aspect of the social media things. I don't want to dive this deep. I don't want this many layers to. On a public level.
I'll tell you one little thing I've learned I'm 49 and I've been in the business for 30 years. And the one thing I've seen, whether somebody falls off or they're, canceled and they're coming back, or many, many years ago, they had box office bombs and they were to blame, whatever kind of took somebody off their route, truth is alluring. Mm-hmm. When you try to shroud yourself in what you once were again and say, no, that's still me, it's done.
Yeah.
But truth and being very transparent, people will come around again.
I mean, especially nowadays, like people can, like I was saying back then, there was this mysterious factor to a lot of people in the entertainment industry where you don't know a lot about them. But nowadays, even if you want to be someone you're not, someone might call you out for it because everyone's got a camera nowadays. Everyone's got a phone. So you could act like this person all day long. But you could easily get called out for it,
right.
you know, and like
Yeah.
transparency is such the foundation of a lot of the social media, you know, influencers nowadays. They want to tell everybody everything, but that's also comes down to because that's just their goal. And we've talked about this in other episodes where like, it all comes down to what your goal is, you know, and if your goal is to be on the internet, if your goal is to gain followers, then yeah, give everything. Do vlogs every day. Do, you know, tell everyone what toothpaste you use. Tell everyone what your favorite brand of deodorant is. Like, people want that information because then they'll feel like they know you.
Right.
But then there's a slippery slope where they feel like they know you, you know, and that's like double-edged sword right there.
But I think also sometimes, you know, the truth people want is sometimes negative. Like the truth they want is the worst version of ourselves, so they can somehow feel connected in that way. Like, oh, well, you're not perfect, so now I feel connected to you. You know, it's like, it's amazing that so many bad things happen to people. Then it's on the internet, and then they want to see like, let me hear what happened. How did that happen?
Right.
And then they want to see, how did you recover from that?
Right,
you know?
right.
Because you get that all the time. And we're not going to talk about this, but, you know, it's like, you know, Dane's brother he stole money, and you had to deal with that. And everybody was there,
Yeah.
you know.
Public eye humiliation moments as well as public eye upper echelon moments. Having it all out there and everybody's suddenly an opinion.
Yeah.
You know, somebody,
Yeah.
they talk to you like your family, and that's not always a good thing.
It's a weird thing, but you know, another thing too is like what Matt was saying is like, you know, again, the thing about everybody having a phone and these kind of moments is they forget that you're a human being. So
Yeah.
you might be at Starbucks where the guy just elbowed you by, you know, by, even if it wasn't by accident, you're having a thing, somebody picks their phone up right at the moment when you're going, hey, jerk, boom, boom, boom. And then it's like, next thing you know, it's like, Dane Cook is in the Starbucks, calling
Right.
people, you know what I mean? And then you're just like, hey,
Right.
and then, you know, you don't necessarily get a moment to be like, no, you don't know what happened. See, this has happened before that. So then
Yeah.
you find yourself being like, do I have to act a certain way all the time? And then it goes back to what you said. You just go, you know what? I'm just going to live in this truth.
Right.
I just had a moment. If
Yeah.
you don't like it, sorry.
Yeah, I learned that from Patrice O'Neill, who was a comedian I came up with who had passed away, and he was one of the first people to tell me, like, as a performer, if you come from your truth, even if it's absurd, it could be some twisted story that's like fantastical. If it means something to you, and you're not bullshitting people, that I'm being introspective because I'm really fascinated by what I don't even know. He was willing to sit in those moments, and I learned a lot about like, okay, as long as I'm aware and the narrative is from me, then I could take those hits. And trust me, I had to take hits that I was not, that I was certainly not wanting or expecting. But at least at my lowest moments, I was always like, but I know I'm not having to collect myself the fragments or the pieces of me that were false and put together a false presentation.
Yeah.
I can put myself together again.
For sure.
And then hopefully from it, and actually, hopefully at the time, but now looking back at some of those things, I wouldn't change it. Those were the things that actually made me ingratiate myself with
Butterfly effect, yeah.
you know, a group of fans that were even more like, dude, now we're really on the journey and rooting for you. And then new people that checked in, like, didn't know much about you before, but now I'm interested.
You know what I like? I did some shows with Dane before the world went crazy. And it was interesting to me. He does a meet and greet before the show. And it's interesting to me to see, like, new fans and old fans, you know? And it's like people that have been on that journey with you.
Right.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
You know, now they're like, here comes a dude. He's like 48. You know what I mean? His wife. And they're just like, you can tell.
He's like, saw you in 92
Right.
at Quinnipiac College, and here's my daughter.
They got an old Dane t-shirt on, and they're just like, oh, man, we still love you. And it's just like, that's the thing right there.
That's right.
You know, it's like, and you seemed you like, oh, this is great. You're like, hey, thanks for still being a fan.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you also kind of know that from where you're coming from, people, you're probably a fan of things that you tap out of once in a while and go, that album, not my favorite, that version of them, and you just do your own thing.
Yeah.
But then you swing back around and go, what are they doing now? And if you don't try to hold on to everything and everybody all the time, that turnstile career of people come and go.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll have high water marks, and you'll have things that people are like, I thought that was caca, and it's like, oh wow, but you might look at something and say, I didn't like that choice you made. I go, well, that's where I fell in love for the first time. So I don't even care that you did or didn't like it. I know I had a moment out of that experience. You know what I mean? So it's,
you know what we're going to do now is, like, I was just about to say, we got to go to Matt's notebook.
Yeah, I got some questions.
Yeah, I knew he would. Notebook, we got to go to the notebook. All right.
you do that and this as well. You're just bringing that music everywhere.
But no, the thing is like what I was gonna ask is based off what you were saying. Do you think that, and this also goes for you too, do you think you would have done anything differently if the internet was there from the gate at the way it is now? Do you think you would have just anything differently? Do you think you would have?
I don't even know.
From the beginning of my career?
From the beginning
those first 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like how different you think it would have been?
it's so funny
Because it comes down to the transparency thing, how we were talking about.
I often think about some of the comics that I admire.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back at what I've been watching them in the clubs do for the past 10 years, and I think to myself, they already are famous. Okay, I don't know sometimes if it would have been the same with the way things are right now.
Right.
Yeah. I just don't know.
Like, would your sets have been different? What do you?
Probably, I think, I think it would have helped comedy more. I think because I find that like with all this transparency, we have to be more thoughtful. Like I've done some sets where I've been like, and somebody will be like, I didn't like what you said.
Right.
And then so initially I'm like, you don't tell me but I do think about it. I go like, okay, why did they have that perspective? Sure. And it makes me go, well, is that something that I want to say? Do I want to make sure I'm saying what I want to say? And so that's that, it just goes with the territory. So now I don't know if I think it would have been different.
There's two things that I know. When I look back on my early stand-up, things that I thought I was not being ignorant about, that I was doing the smart version of. Now I look back and understand, oh, wow, that was the ignorance. I actually thought there was a way to do an Indian voice in a routine that was like, oh, no, I'm propping this person up. I'm not doing what other comics do, which is making this person look the fool. Now I can look back and go, that's not my truth. That's not, there's no need to do that voice. I can still tell a story without
that joke I'm doing.
But so on one hand, there's always going to be things that you look back on. There's no level of policing that is going to keep you from having to learn about another person's experience from where they are. So keeping an open mind and realizing I could not have protected myself from saying, ridiculous shit for a lot of years. And also, I didn't have the spine early in my stand-up to probably stand by my personal constitution. It took me a long time and probably getting battering rammed around the industry a little bit to finally go, oh, I know how to weather storms. I know how to get my thick skin, and I'm ready.
For sure.
Definitely would not have wanted the internet as the early part, because I would have been false. I would have been trying to people tell you who they are and then they show you who they are. I would have been telling you a lot, probably not having as much substance.
And the thing is with that is, how you were talking about where people are watching you and they might come and go, and there's fans who randomly show up like, dude, I didn't like that one thing, but I liked this other thing of you. The thing with social media is that you're seeing these numbers go. So you could see, oh, this video did well. I got 1 million views on this one. I like this one. But this other one I'm about to put tomorrow is going to be great. I will put this one out. And then that one doesn't do as well. And you're like, wait, what? And then you start doing all this judging because you're seeing these numbers right then and there. A lot of the times I feel like back then you're not seeing these numbers consistently of like what my fan base is looking like right now, and that can mess with people's self-esteem and their confidence.
I think the numbers of it all is probably the worst element of anything social media.
I feel bad for so many kids in school right now because I'm so lucky I didn't have to deal with that growing up. Of like looking like around, I know kids are sitting in class right now like, he has 500 followers. I only have 200 followers.
Right.
When there's just a test right there. There's just a science test going on, and this kid's thinking about 500 followers, man. How am I going to get my followers up? And that self-esteem as a 6th grader to mess with, oh man, I couldn't even imagine.
And imagine like when technology gets even better, where it's like going to really be like, we'll have like
Black Mirror.
Yeah, we'll have contact lenses. Be like 1 million followers and blah, blah, blah. And
well, there was an episode of that.
Yeah, I know.
Remember, it was like, I'm going to give you some likes right now. And you could hear chimes in your in the augmented reality, whatever.
The thing about your point too is that you put the video up. This is what I think happens a lot right now too. You put this video up, it gets 1 million views. The other one doesn't. And then you put another video up, it gets 1 million views, and you were doing something wacky in it. Then now you think, well, now I got to be this wacky guy
Now I gotta
all
be
the
this
time.
wacky guy,
And
yeah.
that's what happens.
Right.
That's how so many social media people, like, they start with, like, I'm the guy that does this. And then all of a sudden, people are like, oh, we love that. He's like, well, I got to keep doing that. And I got to keep doing that.
But this is where I'll chime in and say it goes back then to goals, because if that guy or that girl's goal is to gain followers, then he's doing or she is doing exactly what they need to do. If they want to actually stay consistent on a personal level and say, no, this is my foundation of who I am, and that's not going to change regardless of the views and engagement, then their goal is to be or do something else, you know? So, but if their goal is to gain that followers and be the biggest entertainer, because I've heard people on social media say that, I'm going to be the biggest entertainer in the world, blah, blah, blah. So they're not going to stop at anything to get to that point. If this means cooking
what does that
videos.
even mean now, though?
Thank you.
What does being the biggest entertainer in the world even mean?
Is this based on followers? Like, you're the biggest
If it's
entertainer with
based
the
on
most.
only a number, then you're in trouble. Because I don't know if this is even like it's side item, but there's a lot of bamboozling going on even with those algorithms and who gets seen what, where, and why. Maybe a story for part 2 if you'll have me back.
Of course, of course.
But let me tell you something.
We're going to play it by ear.
We'll see how this one goes. Yeah.
How does it edit? I'll tell you what I saw growing up, which I've always been a kind of an analytics and data and numbers person.
Mm-hmm.
It was there my whole life, even though oddly I have dyscalculia, which like seeing numbers.
What is dyscalculia?
It's like dyslexia where I get numbers mixed up if I'm looking at numbers or if I'm trying to, like, if you told me your phone number, by the time you get to the last digit, I can't remember the first couple or I switch them.
Got
Tell
it.
your brother stole the money.
All right, well, again, part 2, part 3. Maybe part 3
Yeah,
for that
part
one.
3.
Okay. There's people hearing this for the first time right now like, what?
Going back to context.
Right. Yes, we got it.
But okay, no. But let me leapfrog through time back, which is, so I grew up seeing movies and TV shows that were considered duds or failures. And then suddenly you'd call them at the time like cult classics. That meant like they hung around. And then later they became some of the most successful movies that to this day you go like Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a classic comedy. That if you watch it today, it's just as funny. It was a bomb.
Austin Powers was a bomb.
Austin Powers. So
I actually have heard that before, where a lot of movies have been bombs in the beginning, but then when the DV comes out or something like that,
Yes.
or later on,
But to anybody listening who's worried about your numbers, I want you to think of this, and I'll tell you, because I lived through this. When my first album came out, my first comedy album, they told me, the record company, you're only going to sell 6,000 copies of this, maybe. Now, I sold 20,000 out of my trunk over 2 years. I said, guys, no, I guarantee. They fought me on it. And when it finally came out, my first album sold 90,000 copies in the first week. Dang. Now, they were excited.
Wow.
I was excited. But I was like, I know this could have done even better, just kind of given my social media presence. Think about this. For the person with 200 followers and going like, oh, but how can I build my brand up? So when my next album came out and I was better and I prepped better and I knew the success
world
and
better.
and I knew the world, I knew the behind the scenes, I knew how to edit better, I knew the sound, things I'd learned. When that album came out and was successful, the first one, the numbers went up. So don't think so. Create something authentic and let your full legacy bolster the catalog later. Don't worry about one thing being the perfect thing.
Yeah. And that's when it comes down to, like you said, don't letting one thing be the perfect thing. It comes down to expectations, you know, just doing what you do because you love it, you know, and that's why when you want to upload a video or you want to do this, just do it because you genuinely enjoy it. And that's so many of the times that's what happened. It'll be like 4 a.m. or something like that. And I'll randomly think of an idea. 3 a.m. that's like when I'm most creative. And then I'll randomly just make it, upload it at that time, and then go to bed, and I'll wake up and like, that'll be the video that has like 10 million views. I'm like, what? What? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's like, that's because I didn't put so much thought into it. Like, yes, I know the world on stuff, but I just did it because I love it. And that's that, you know? And then, you know, all the other videos, they'll trickle down into all those. And
that's how podcasting works too, man. He'll be like,
people
you know,
want to wait until
they'll be
they
like, "Ooh,
see.
let me see this," and they'll be like, "Oh, well, I like this. Let me go check episode 1." Blah 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 blah. You know?
Oh, totally. I'll be watching, or I'm always keeping a podcast or something on while I'm working. And to be honest, I'll work, I'll have it on, and if something I think is really an organic conversation, it pulls me, because I think the truth is so alluring that if you're listening or you see it, and next thing you know, I'm watching Erik, he's talking to Glassman, and they're making me laugh, and I might watch something else based on that those guys are doing, because now you've hooked me, and you're doing something that I'm like, oh, they're talking some real or being real funny in a way that like speaks to me, because and I know them, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, they're not just yapping for the sake of like we have 10 more minutes. It's like they're on a rhythm, a banter, and which is great. You guys together, by the way?
I know. You know what? a lot of people are telling me this.
Oh,
too.
it's funny. It's
Yeah,
funny
and I realize it. And sometimes you know what the thing is that when you find out something about someone that you didn't know before, and it changes your perspective about them,
right?
It can really enhance your relationship. So, like, Rick is someone that he has autism. Okay, he's autistic, and I didn't know this. So he was annoying the out of me for years because he didn't even know what it was.
Right.
And then when he figured it out and he told me, I had such a moment.
Right.
Dane,
Yeah.
I was in tears.
Right.
Like I've had conversations with Rick and I'll just go to tears.
Yeah.
Because I get him more now.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Before, you guys didn't have
We didn't have that thing.
the full language of being able to really receive.
Yeah.
Is he doing this to frustrate me when he knows I'm frustrated?
Or because we're comics. You know those comics things. They got me on.
Yeah.
I'm on all the time.
Yeah.
And I thought
If anybody ever did that around me, by the way, you'd see it. The quickest exit strategy search. I'd be like, that door right there.
It's just like sometimes
beeline directly
like
for
when
the door.
When you don't know someone, man, it's like a weird thing, dude. You get to know someone, it just changes. So I don't have a notebook, but I do have a notebook question.
Oh, wish you told me. I would have come up with a notebook question.
Yeah,
as
well, you
well.
can. You already have, but this is one like for all of us. It's like
when he goes into high pitched voice.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it,
because he's just on the brink of having a meltdown, and then it's like you can either push it a little or just like, okay, easier.
You see what I'm saying? This is what I have to deal with.
I told you that.
This is what I have to deal with.
Off the building.
This is what to deal with.
I picked up an AK. Wasn't loaded.
Oh, actually, we're going to talk about that too. We all play Warzone.
Warzone.
Oh, you play Warzone?
Oh man,
this
gamer
guy's-
from the beginning of my life.
He's actually a monster. Okay,
Oh,
too.
oh.
Like he's just very. He attacks Warzone
As
the
a
way he
gamer.
attacked his career.
I love it. I love it. This is a good trio. This is a great
I'm
trio
telling you
right here.
now. We should do that. We actually should
That's
do
a
that.
great-
on my
this is a
stream
great
one
trio.
time, man.
Yeah.
But it's funny. Just I'm revealing this. Dane doesn't like streaming. He don't want to stream. And he
get it.
told me. He said, "Listen, man, I get into it.
Into the game.
I get into the game. I'm going to be yelling. I'm going to be
competitive.
saying things. He's super competitive, and he don't want people out there being like, "Damn, that guy's crazy."
Right. It's like I'm less funny because I become
Yeah, I feel you on that.
my whole world is like.
We're not getting into that.
You think you're bad?
No.
This one is.
But no, we're not.
You ever
we're not-
break a controller?
We're not. I've never broken a controller.
I did by
I've broken a
squeezing it.
headset.
You know how hard it is to break a Elite
some
Xbox
Thanos-
Elite? I'm
that's
doing
some
very well,
Thanos
by the way. I
stuff
don't know
right
if you know this.
I was gonna.
Yeah, the humble brag. He's got he has like a cabinet. There's another one.
But it's all the same one. It's not even like different controllers. It's like, all right, here's another.
The point is, we love Warzone.
Yes, we love Warzone. Here's my question.
Okay.
My question
I'm
is
ready.
like, is there an invention? Like, if you can think back in your life, is there like an invention that you think that you go, wow, that really changed the world or changed your world?
This has been a consistent question for
because
everyone.
I want to ask you, because I tell you one that I've been thinking about. For me, it's the elevator. Like, if you think about how the elevator.
That was.
I know.
Whoa! What a.
Yeah. Okay. The elevator. If you think about how cities are built and what goes on and how people live, the elevator is one of the most fantastic inventions to ever be invented.
You know what the earliest version of the elevator was?
What's that?
A river.
Right.
Yeah, because you'd walk all the way up, gather what you had, and then you'd take the canoe back down to your
You can
home.
also carry more.
Right.
But I just feel like the elevator made it so we didn't have to live like this.
Can people online
We can
vote?
live like
we
this.
all have our
We should.
our picks.
We got to put a poll on the
Okay,
YouTube
poll.
channel about that. Please put a
Okay.
poll up for that.
Eric
about-
thinks the elevator.
the elevator is
is
one of the
the
greatest
greatest
inventions.
invention.
I'm sure
I'm not saying the
antibiotics is probably second.
Yeah. Right.
Are you going to say antibiotics?
No, I'm
What's
gonna go.
personal to you?
I'm gonna tell you, but it's your show.
Go,
and
go,
I'm gonna,
go. Matt, you go.
I mean, there's nothing really, honestly, that's been so crazy to me. I guess just the fact of like self-driving cars, because I'm going to sound super spoiled here, like a little spoiled brat, but I just got my license recently.
Mm-hmm.
I just turned 24 and I got it around a year and a half
Been
ago.
Ubering for like 10 years.
Okay. It hasn't even been around 10 years, so let's put that out there. Anyways, so
I get on.
yeah, jeez. Anyways, so my girlfriend has a Tesla, and in the matter of like 1 year, I'm learning how to drive, and then we start dating, and then now I'm in her car driving, and it just is self-driving. That to me, and the fact that in 1.5 years I went from getting my license, driving a normal car, to then being in a car that drives itself, like just self-driving cars in general, that blows my mind.
But is that really even happening yet?
It is.
It is right now.
Tesla, people are they
Fully-
they fully automated.
Fully
But
automated. You go on the
I
freeway.
want to make a
it's-
point
yeah.
with you right now
Okay.
about something that he just said. It's
All right.
so interesting for us being 49,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This guy's
Wait, 'cause how old are you?
Too. I'm 49.
Okay, we're 49.
Here's the thing. Our generation, I think that we have seen the most technological advancements
100%.
in our lifetime
In the short amount
of time
Right.
than anybody in any other generation.
Because everything up to 95 was a different kind of everything.
I'm talking about.
And yeah, I
even
was born in
just look-
'97, so I don't.
Just look
Right.
at the telephone. We went from, rotary.
Right.
We had rotary phones. Then we went to the push button. Then it was like call waiting and then three-way calling. We had that.
What's call waiting?
You know what it is. It's when somebody else calls.
and you hear
And
the
you hear
thing
the-
go beep beep and tells you
We
there's
didn't
another
have
call.
that before. There used to be a busy tone.
Yeah.
Like we'd be on the phone and somebody else would call and it would be like and that would let you know that person's on the phone.
They're on the phone.
That's what we had to deal with. Look at his face. Can
Right.
you even imagine?
There was a girl in my neighborhood that I liked, and if I called 3 or 4 times and I got the busy signal, you called it, I would open my window and I would yell, "I'm trying to call you!" And then finally she would hang up and I could get
Did you ever
through.
do an emergency breakthrough? Like, can you call me? Press 0 and be like, this is an emergency call, and I need you to. You never did
I
that.
never did
Oh,
that.
I've done
No.
that.
Wait, so then how would you get a hold of emergency services?
it would
in
be
general? What was
it was
the-
still 911.
It was still
Yeah.
911.
Yeah, and they had
Wait,
they
prior
had-
to September 11th?
they had a board, so yeah.
That is a wild.
It was just
That is a wild coincidence.
Matt,
of
that was just a
numbers.
coincidence that it was on 9/11, but 911 has always been the emergency
Yeah.
number.
Whoa.
I think
I
they
was
picked
watching-
the day. I think they picked the day to purposely. Originally, they were going to crash it on 7-Eleven to ruin the
So yeah,
to ruin the convenience store chain.
Yeah, they wanted it. They wanted to crash into a 7-Eleven, but the 7-Eleven was
They weren't
too.
tall enough.
It wasn't tall.
Too soon.
Yeah, I don't.
I love this.
I don't even-
Wait, before 9/11, it was
Is that a dumb question?
super dumb.
Is that a, okay?
No, it's not dumb. It was
I
just
swear
like
I've asked this question to someone before. I'm like, where did they get that number for 911? And then I always thought about it. I was like, oh, was it because like I didn't.
other countries have adopted 911 only because of TV,
Right.
Because people watch these shows, and so other countries like they watch TV and they go, the emergency number is 911. So other countries have adopted that too. But that's
Yeah.
so anyway. But just so you can answer the question,
Right.
It is interesting that when he said that about like what are the advancements, because there are no real advancements that have happened in this short of a lifetime, because now everything is just established. It's like we have the iPhone, so every version of the iPhone after
We're just
that,
getting better versions
Yes.
of what we already had.
we got this
I
stuff
see what
like
you're
we had
saying.
the first computer.
Right.
I had a Commodore 64.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
I did too.
And we do like those.
Still don't know what that is. everyone.
It was a computer. It had like the keyboard was like 6 feet wide.
Yeah. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
Your desk.
Yeah.
Powered it.
Yeah, it had the monitor had one color, green,
Yep.
and shades of green. That was the first computer, man. And then so we
Whoa.
think about like how video games. So we saw that. We saw where video games are today.
Right.
We saw
Like multiplayer came along like late 90s to where finally you could play other people anywhere in the world.
I
And
mean,
it-
one of my earliest memories. It's funny because you're actually part of my early memories when it comes down to like things I remember on like pop culture and things like that. And Halo 2 was something where that was one of the first games you could ever
Yeah.
play with other people.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm the youngest of 4, so I vividly have memories of me playing Halo 2 and listening to your stand-ups.
oh wow.
And I have even on my first ever MP3 player had no screen on it, and my siblings had all your stand-ups from iTunes
Yeah.
on it, and I would listen to them, and I would be going through them, and I didn't see which one was which, but I would remember like, and I even remember one where you're like, "Thanks for the candy," like ones
Oh
like
my
that,
gosh.
like
yeah. First
like
early clips.
early ones, and like it's just it's wild to see how far we come, because like you said, there's not really been anything crazy since then. It's just been better
Advancements.
versions of
Actually,
that.
That's true.
And actually,
You know?
what this generation is doing now is they're getting rid of technology because it's so stupid. Like, who's got an iPod? Where's your iPod? You know, no, it's right here. Everything's right here. Nobody has cameras. Nobody has iPods. Nobody has DVD players. Nobody has CD players.
Right.
We're streaming everything.
Home automation.
Home automation,
your
man.
lights.
Yeah, dude. So it's like all these things are just making things better. But you know,
Food delivery, obviously everything. Like
well, what's your invention?
Well,
what's the one
before I get
changed
to that,
you?
there was only one place that delivered pizza in my town growing up. And get ready, I worked there years later. It was one of my first jobs, like, you know, out of high school. And if you called and I didn't feel like delivering you a pizza, I'd be like, I'm too busy, and I'd just hang up. There was only one place that you could possibly order. You couldn't order other places. There was no other
nobody
food
did
delivery.
it. They didn't even think about it.
Yeah, so you had to hope that the person at the pizza place was like, I got a few minutes, I'll run something over.
Yeah, pizza and Chinese food was the only ones.
Yeah,
you know, for a long time.
In New York, that's right. I remember I went to New York.
Even in LA, Chinese food was like the one. Can we get some Chinese food? You know, I don't know why.
Yeah,
they just figured it out. They were just like, why don't we just take it to them?
Yeah, I discovered that in New York, and there was a guy that would like bike to your place with the Chinese food delivery, but it felt unique. It was like, oh, this one place is going to bring me my food if I throw them a little extra tip.
Yeah.
And so obviously now you've got 9 apps that deliver everything. But I'll tell you, for me, it's kind of similar to what you said. But the biggest change for me was we used to not have GPS in our car. And you had something called a Thomas guide.
We talked about Thomas guide, and I was like, what in
No idea.
what in God's name is a Thomas guide? Is it like MapQuest?
It was like
What
an
is it?
atlas book of
What
the,
is an
of the
atlas?
world.
By the way,
What's an atlas book?
But by the way, an atlas is a book of maps. You know.
Whoa.
And the Thomas guide, you also had to have a degree from the Learning Annex to learn how to.
You didn't know how to play Battleship and have a degree from the learning.
Dude.
Here's what I was ready.
So ridiculous.
It was a book, and let's say you needed to get from here to Fresno. You'd be like, I got to get the Thomas guide. You got to open up Southern California, and then you'd be like, okay, A11. You'd find you, and then go, okay, I got to go from A11, and then you would have to map out a route and keep that book with you. And you didn't know if there were road closers, detours,
dude,
accidents.
Forget going to Fresno. How about going from Burbank to Culver City? It would be like F,
Yeah.
and then you'd have to be like, okay, G. Then you got to go to like, you got to go like 7 pages over to be like, okay. Do you remember the first time? I remember the first time they had
What?
MapQuest.
How did you guys find anything? How
Who
did
you
get?
telling?
How did you get anywhere?
You were late a lot.
Can I tell you something?
You were late a lot.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something?
Everything.
I don't even know how to reverse the car without a reverse cam now. So that's how I've incorporated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
so,
wow.
So you say GPS.
The Thomas guide, GPS becoming like, kind of a part of everyday life. The convenience of that feels like, and I could have gone with like medical stuff, but I'm talking about like the convenience of how our life changed.
Yeah.
I feel like
daily life stuff.
that puts so much relaxation in your life, because going anywhere other than where you knew prior to that was a chore.
Yeah, man.
Oh, wow.
First of all, we had to. This is the thing that these kids don't get. We had to memorize every phone number in our every phone number from every person we wanted to know. We had to memorize their number.
What about a thing of the phone book? Y'all don't have a phone book. My mom's got a phone book.
They had it was called a Rolodex.
A Rolodex. Yeah, and my dad's got a Rolodex. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. Well,
You don't want to carry that around with you.
yeah,
It's true.
What are you?
What about
what are you, a nerd? You're just like, just a second. Let me get my.
Oh, Stacy from. Okay.
You know, so like, even all these things. But of course, medical advancements and all those kinds of things, yeah, those are great inventions and they've changed the world, obviously. But I'm just saying, think of something that was personal to you, something you think, wow, what a great invention. Or just, it could be something that from the past. You go, hey, I think this is a great invention. So I don't know. I agree with you, though. GPS was one of those ones that.
Big game changer.
Again, but like we lived in both. That's what I'm saying is unique about whatever generation this is, or we Z, or I don't even know what we are. Do you?
What are you guys?
Yeah, what are we identified as?
I don't know. Besides,
What is our generation?
I don't even know. We got to figure that out. But somebody and
The success generation?
The success generation.
Oh, it's just how I look at my generation.
There you go.
you know what? I got to tell you,
You
what
have to think it, right? If you don't think it and ruminate on success, then how are you going to make it come to fruition?
you have to have.
I made a comment about when I said, yeah, I mean, when I get my first Oscar, and you're like, this guy said his first Oscar. I'm like, well, yeah.
He thinks jinx, you think manifest. Who will win?
Yeah, 2 different worlds. All right.
I know, guys. That's why he has 4 million followers, and he's got got 2 houses in the hills. But it's like, do you? Here's another one off.
I have a question too. Come back to me after.
No. We'll go to your question now. Go.
I was going to say, what about future? Let's look down the road. What do you hope is going to be a game changer?
We've talked about.
Oh, you have done that?
No, but this is good. I like to talk about it with new guests.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up because I say the only thing that's going to blow these kids' minds is like teleportation. Like it's going to be like, you could be in Paris like this.
I think it's also space travel, like actually creating places we can live in space on different planets. I think that's going to be the one where it's like, okay, this is really happening. Like if I have enough money, I could get a ticket to space.
I have the cash if you want to go. If this is
Okay, cool.
coming together.
You got space cash?
You got space cash? You got some.
I think you rich, Dave, but I don't think you got. I don't think you good.
I think one ticket is like $250K or something.
But you couldn't go like. You'd go one.
Tell like it is toward you.
He wouldn't do round trip.
You could go one. I go one way. You go one.
He'd be a one way to the moon.
And then I got a gig for years to get back.
You're not going 3 times in a year, okay? That's you flossing. That's
3
you
round
going,
trips to the atmosphere
That's
real
like you
quick.
going, I don't know.
Okay,
But I think
fair
the
enough.
future, it has to be like, I think it will be medical advancements too. I think it'll be a thing where it's like,
Nanotechnology is my pick.
Oh yeah.
I think it's going to be a thing where it's like you need a new kidney. It'll be like that, Star Trek. It'll be like, oh, take the kidney pill, and it's like, really? I think
Kidney pill.
Take the kidney
I think
pill.
transplants and things like that. I think cloning.
Yeah.
But it's going to be the thing that's going to be like you need a new heart, then they can like boom,
Yeah.
I think nanotechnology could kind of be ahead of all that stuff, though, because you wouldn't need the transplants and stuff. If nanotechnology is going through your body and eradicating the plaque that's within your system, through your heart, in your veins, it's like they're really close with that, too. Microscopic organisms that they inject in you go through your body and, like, nix out all the the bad elements.
But they don't want that because then what the biggest problem with that would be?
What?
Population control.
Yep, population control.
That would be the
Because
biggest
automatically everyone would be living until 150.
Yeah, and it's like that would then we would need the space travel.
Yeah, we'd run out of
we would
space.
need
I feel
like some sort of like space arc.
We need a smarter person here.
Yeah,
I think we're all at full capacity right now, and we're kind of like, I just hit the wall. We need a
Somebody was
mental
thinking
level
about that.
genius.
I was like, I wish we just had like a doctor here or some type of scientist.
we
who
need
would
Neil
know.
deGrasse
Ready?
Tyson.
Here's them the whole time. Ugh.
Huh?
How do
These
I
guys.
unf this belt?
Oh man! All right, what's your question?
Yeah.
Was that your question?
That was kind of it. I was just like soothsayer, like what's the future? But I think that we all kind of think it's like space or medical or.
I had a kid on my podcast. His name's Dylan Dickstein, and he's like trying to get into the NASA program. He's a super smart kid, and he's so interesting. I actually met him doing Logan Paul's podcast, and he was just there hanging out, and he started talking to me about I want to go to Mars. But when you start talking to him, he dumbs it down for me, right. But it's very much like
Explains it to you like a 12-year-old.
Yeah, but we're not close. We're not close in terms of like
He still doesn't get it. It's like try 9-year-old.
Try 9, It's like, you tell him, explain it to me as if I'm 12, and then he does it, and you're like, okay, now do it as if I'm 5.
Yeah. 9 was
Talk to me like you're 12 and I'm 5. Let's try that.
Talk to me like you are my first grade teacher trying to teach me something.
Tell me a lie that makes me believe the thing I already think I'm smart enough to know.
Yeah, because I just go, so Star Wars, right? It's going to be just like that, right? So I don't know. We're just not close in terms of like the human body being able to take the velocity of the travel and what space does to the body.
Right.
And, remember those.
But it's and at its simplest, the reason we can't go very far is water. Water is the biggest issue.
Yeah, there's no planets with water.
You can't
Well,
build.
not no,
you
but there's a
can't.
few
You
of them.
can't.
according to the movie Martian with Matt
Matt
you
Damon.
could in the dirt and grow potatoes.
Yeah,
you
and I
believe that?
Love that movie though. Have you ever read
a
the book?
great
The
movie.
book's even better because it's even more science.
I didn't read the book, but I really love that movie.
Yeah, I love
even
that
though the pooping in the
come on.
tent with the thing.
Well, it's fertilizer. You know?
I get it. I know.
Well-
I know what he was making. I'm just
No,
saying.
but even in that thing, they had like a water.
we need a MythBusters and a doctor in here.
Because isn't water?
I just want to
what's
fact check. I
Well,
just
what's
want to
the
fact
water?
check.
Water
these.
is hydrogen. What is water? H2O. It's hydrogen plus oxygen. So
yeah.
can't you make water if you have a bunch of hydrogen and oxygen?
From what I understand, if you ever listen to big brains talking about why can't we just go there and start building, they always go, well, water is a big issue.
Yeah.
You have to have a lot of water.
And I feel like that comes down to weight too. Like talking about making water, like you can maybe make a few gallons.
That's
but
true.
then what?
Not enough to last like the 6-month travel to. And they're
Yeah.
not even close to like in every movie. What do they do when they go on space travel? They
go to sleep.
They go to sleep.
Yeah.
We're not even close to that technology.
Yeah.
Right. They're all comedians in that scene.
Yeah. Then they wake wake up and it's some out of shape guy. Like I was used to wonder in
3 years of sleep. That's me in Tampa.
It's like when you watch Star Wars, I always used to wonder like why are the gold leader have to be like a fat dude that looks like George Lucas? You know, like everybody in the plane was always just like, I don't think that guy would have to be in shape.
Right, Porky.
Yeah,
That's what his name was in the movie too.
oh, was it?
Yeah, dude.
All
I'm
right. There you
Star
go.
Wars.
Remember Porky's?
Porky's.
What's a
Yeah.
porky?
A fat guy.
Oh,
A porker is what they used to
Dane,
call it.
Dane people don't know this
gentleman.
about Dane, but Dane is very much a nerd, like a super nerd. All right.
In what ways? Like,
Oh, a collectible nerd. Okay,
because there's a lot of different nerds.
Action
like,
figure
I'm a
stuff,
action figure nerd,
video game
gamer
nerd,
nerd, yeah.
my knowledge of certain things and like sci-fi, and I can go on deep dive conversations. When somebody starts bringing up like the making of Star Wars, like I'm right there. I'm like, okay, now you're speaking my language.
Well, on that topic, I've always thought that, and people are going to be like, yo, Matthew's crazy for this. But I feel like a lot of the people in the film industry, especially from the 70s and 80s and 90s, they knew something about space. They knew something. Somehow, like, how were they able to make Star Wars? How were they able to know this much? Because a lot of the times we still are going off of what was made 50 years ago. We're going off of that idea of like with the space travel and all this. Like it blows my mind that they were that early on and understanding of it. And I feel like, for lack of better terms, film and TV conditions us for what's to come. And I don't know if
So like
Oh,
that's
a movie like Independence Day is preparing us for some kind of mass invasion, and like at least we,
oh,
right?
that'd be
Where are you going to be when that happens?
in one of my houses up in the hills.
They're going to blow that up first. That's going to be
bunker number 45. What do you mean?
Think about that.
Yeah, they're listening to your albums.
They
and they're
grazed my house with the bottom of their
Oh
ship.
yeah, it's Dane. No. We like him.
yeah, they're looking out the window like,
The landing gear tears my master bedroom off. But it's okay. I'm in the kitchen.
yeah, now I just feel like what we don't understand, it's similar to like, religion or anything like that. Like these, we have these thoughts and our imagination runs wild. And the problem, not a problem, but the thing now is we have the technology to whatever we have in our head, we have the ability to show that on screen.
Right.
So that's something that I find that would be another amazing
in a way that's really appealing to the human eye.
Yeah.
Like digestible to go like this looks and feels very real.
Oh, the first moment I felt that? The first moment I really felt that was when I watched Jurassic Park in the theater for the first time.
Oh yeah.
When that dinosaur came on the screen,
You could tell it didn't look like separate from the background.
the whole theater was like,
Yeah.
it was so amazing because that was the first time a CGI created character was on the screen in that way.
Right.
So, question: would you be able to still watch that today, having the knowledge you guys have with seeing all the movies you've seen? Would you be able to?
It's still immersive.
It's still okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a few
He's a
movies-
great storyteller.
There's a few movies that, like, if you watch Terminator 2, James Cameron's technology he used then, except for maybe one scene where the robot's coming out of the fire, it looks a little wonky, but it's you get immersed in it because
Yeah.
it looks that good.
Wow.
Anything before that, you start to go like, oh, I'm being pulled out of it because it looks.
I disagree in a way that sometimes I go, I can recognize CGI now.
Right.
And I don't mind it as CGI because it's such a great story that's being
Right.
told.
If it's great,
Yeah, you
if
get
it's-
over it quick,
yeah,
and like you said, nowadays I'll also be like, nah, that helicopter is definitely CGI. But I'm like,
now
I'm okay with it.
The
though,
CGI
you
in
know?
movies that I like now is like you don't even know that it's CGI. Like most movies, like if there's any kind of action or whatever, it's a lot of CGI going on. But when they have like a character, and that's why I loved like in Mandalorian that they used a doll. I really loved that.
Oh, the practical of using like a real puppet.
I
or
love
whatever.
that the baby Yoda was a doll.
Right.
And it made, I don't know why it
What,
drew
Baby
me in
Yoda's
more.
not real?
It drew me in.
I'm
more,
out.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
But what you were saying about like where did they pull that influence from to create those kinds of films and have that? What was the visual?
Yeah, like
blueprint?
what? Yeah, exactly. Like because
It's called books.
But it's all
But even that visual, like how do
Right.
you write that? How
But
do you? You're just. We don't even have anything to go off of. So that to me blows my mind. How do you think of Star Wars?
I think
you
if
know what I'm
Orson
saying?
Welles was alive today,
War of the Worlds. Orson
Yeah.
Welles did like radio plays
Okay.
before television.
yeah, he
I
scared.
love how you guys have to set up
He
things for
scared
me.
America.
You guys are like, okay, well,
I
this
thought
guy.
that's part of what the show is.
No,
if he doesn't,
yes.
No, that's what I'm saying.
If I
I
look
love
at
it.
you and you do nothing, I'll tell you. But if you're looking like I got it.
Because I did have a blank face. I'm like,
I think if Orson Welles was
Orson
alive,
Welles, the
and
bank, right?
and he had the technology available to him right now, I'd love to see what kind of thing he would have come up with.
I mean, he was a fantastical thinker. So why wouldn't he be using it to the hilt?
Right.
But I think back, the first kind of geeky thing I did was 7th grade. I read a book called Chariot of the Gods, and the book is still available and amazing to this day. And what it did is it was talking about how in Egypt, in the pyramids, the hieroglyphics that are on the wall, the carvings, they found that they were representative of what we're talking about now, space. There's carvings of spaceships. There's people looking up at the sky, and there's a person sitting in a craft with fire coming out of it. This is thousands of years that it's been etched on the walls of, with sarcophagus and all these other things. This book, when I was in 7th grade, was breaking down and showing all the art throughout history. Paintings 2,000-3,000 years ago, you can Google this today, that have people, near a lake, a painting of a lot of, and then there's something floating in the sky that the artist was obviously like pulling from something in history that floated above them that was obviously mechanical looking. Anyway, you could do a deep dive into that, but what I think is when I read Chariot of the Gods and they broke down that there was a map of the entire like east coast of the United States and South Africa, what that used to look like back thousands of years ago, those maps were in existence on those cave walls or in those pyramids. There was no technology to get that high to make a map at that point. You couldn't walk down.
Yeah, it would have to be somebody
a continent.
Somebody would have to walk. 1, 2.
There's a jetty. There's a bush. So I think that like this was like the version as I grew up seeing film and television start to expedite those visions into like great, not always so great, but storytelling, the visual medium of storytelling. But before that, it was all campfire stories or things that were etched on a wall, and it's
like I got in. I remember the first book I read for pleasure. Well, actually, the first book I read that I enjoyed as a little kid, I'm reading this book, was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh wow, okay.
And I read that, and I could read it over and over again, and I knew what was going to happen, but I'd still be reading like, oh, he's about to find it.
Yeah.
This is it,
Right.
This is it.
And I was, oh yeah,
and it is again.
I used to love that. So I still read science fiction books.
Did you like really anticipate the page turn? You knew on page 87 it's going down.
I read that book like maybe 10 times, and I knew everything that was going to happen, but I just enjoyed that book.
I was like that with Stephen King's the Dark Tower series, which started when I was a freshman in high school, and he wrote them over 20 years. There was like 7 books. But I was the same way. I'd read a chapter, I'd go back and read it again going, I don't want to know, but I do want to know. Let me build up to it again. Almost like you'd rewind a movie today.
I even feel like when I first read the
I would
Harry
have to do
Potter,
that.
Harry Potter
sorry
series.
to cut you off, but I would have to reread the page again because I don't know what I just read. It's not because I'm anticipating it, but I'm just like, what did I do? Let me do this again. Hold up.
Yeah, but now it's like we're just inundated with like so much.
But now you do it with an iPad, and what I dig about that is...
I do it with audio. Or with audio, so I don't even need that.
I couldn't even read. These kids aren't even reading.
They're
just listening to Whoopi Goldberg read everything to them.
I love audiobooks too myself, man. I delve into audiobooks. I love it.
I want to hear the narrator
the
in
thing
my
is
own
with
mind.
me is that like I don't like audiobooks if it's like a robot. If it's like the tree was super like and you're just like no. It's
can't listen to that.
I can't listen to that. If it's like an actual human being reading it to me, I'm like
no. I like when they're when they're doing it like they're a dad and they're like Robin Williams and they're
that's
and
what I'm
then
saying.
the pork came into view.
But I want to imagine that voice. But I want to imagine because sometimes you could be reading something and you're projecting your own feeling into it.
Yes.
Why do I want you to tell me how I should be emoting? Let me feel that experience.
For sure.
And
I guess it's just the fact is my own voice in my head is too loud sometimes, so I can't even be like reading something and then be like, yeah, but what are you gonna have for dinner tonight? And I'm like, oh my god, okay, yeah, what am I gonna have for dinner tonight? I don't know. My brain is just
Do you dream in music? Do you ever dream music?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my goodness, that happens to me a lot. Do you ever dream music?
Dream music.
It's funny because I've never actually had anyone ask me that question, but I've experienced it. And the moment you asked me, I knew exactly what you were talking about.
I wake up sometimes with a song blasting so loud in my not a version.
That's how it went.
But I wake up thinking, oh, I'm going to wake up next to a very loud radio.
Yeah.
And the second I wake up, it stops. But I'm not hearing an interpretation of it. I hear the actual song playing at full blast until I wake up.
That's interesting.
And sometimes it's overlapping the entire dream.
So interesting. Oh, I'll also say one more
There
thing.
you go.
The only
That's
time
the easiest out of any conversation.
He's done that so many times to me. I'll be like
to your
saying
girl.
something.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
And that's been Gen2Gen.
And there you go.
No, but the only time actually my brain can really get through a full page without like just going in a whole different world is a script. And it's so weird because growing up, I've had so many issues reading books to the point where whenever we would have reading sessions in our classroom, I would ask the teacher if I could just write instead. And that's actually how I really got into writing and like long stories and all that stuff, was because I had literal issues paying attention to what I was reading. And it wasn't
any kind
until
of ADHD kind of thing, or
I'm guessing I do. I've never really gotten fully tested, but I could like 99.9% say. My brother said I have ADHD, so which I agree.
But he's kind of a.
No, but I didn't take that offensive because at the end of the day, I feel like I do have it, but I don't even think it's necessarily a handicap. I look at it as just like everyone is different and everyone's brain works a different way. We just like putting labels on things.
Oh yeah. I don't even mean it
No,
as
but
like,
I wasn't saying that to you.
I think if you I think
yeah.
if you wrangle anything like that, like we talk about Rick, and some people would think like somebody on the spectrum is somebody I want on my team because they are focused and there's no frill, superfluous ego. They're going to be very direct with you about whatever it is that they're feeling or seeing, and I appreciate that.
Let me tell you something. Though. I have an accountant. And so, like, I was like, taxes were coming. I was dealing with all this stuff, and then so I was in a room with 3 of the accountants, 3 of the weirdest people I've ever met. like just
no stigma here. No,
not in a bad way. I'm just saying. I don't say weird. I guess it sounds bad.
Episode.
They're not weird. You're feeling.
I'm just saying they were all like on the spectrum, and then I thought, oh yeah, like this is where I want this, because it was like, it was so like I was like, wow. Like I saw genius at work is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, that's
you know what I mean.
But that's
like
what I mean.
I saw it at work. It was like one was like with the numbers and knew everything. Well, if you do this and blah 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 blah, and it was like one was shaking, the other one was like very very like and I was like, this is it.
I had to trust that the voices in my head sometimes that were screaming over me. I had to relinquish a little bit of my power to myself to go, maybe I should be following the louder voice. And as long as it's not causing me to exhaust myself, because I'm really not obtaining anything, I'm only just going voice to voice. What I found was that it's almost like you're having an argument in your head going, but this is really what I'm supposed to be doing. And instead I'm focusing on something that's not even really important to me. And that's,
so you're saying the louder voice is like your conscience?
I'm saying that sometimes it's I wish I was smart enough to know like the medical jargon, but it's almost like that's the lead dog in you going, this is real. Like something else might be you're fixated or you have a little OCD or something that's pulling you towards not the narration of really where you should be focusing and where you should be going. You need to kind of like listen to those voices sometimes and go, let me put all the other ones away and go with this one that's telling me like, no, this is the right idea. You know?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing too. Like it's really a balance of knowing when to listen to that voice, because like you could be focusing on something and then your brain takes you somewhere else. You could be like, okay, well that louder voice is telling me to do this, but then you have to really sit back and then think about it real time. Okay, but now should I do this or should I do that? And like, and I am glad that times in my past I have listened to the voice in my head and been like, yeah, I can do this a different way. Hey teacher, instead of me reading this book and then having to write about it, can I just write my own stories? Like, well,
and do you have teachers that allow that?
yeah, I'll never forget my teacher, Miss Schreiner. In 5th grade, we had to do a reading log where we had to read a book. And for the first 6 months of the school year, I would just reread the same book, Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And the only reason I liked it is because I'm a very visual person. And they would have random little pictures in it of like describing what was going on every other like page or whatever. So I know that sounds super like, oh, you need a picture book in 5th grade? But like,
I didn't think like, I was like, oh, I want to see these pictures.
But I just kept on redoing the same thing. I'd read the same first volume, then do the second one, do the third, and then I eventually was like, listen, I'm not learning anything here. I'm just reading the same books to give you something. So can I just talk to you about maybe writing something? And she was like, well, are you just going to write your name a bunch? And like, while everyone's reading for an hour, you're just going to keep writing Matthew over and over again because you're writing. I'm like, no, I will write.
Yeah, thanks for believing in me, Miss Schreiber.
No. She thought I was trying to trick her. I mean, that was a valid question. A 5th grader's asking you to write. You think you could get away with something by just writing, oh yeah, I'm writing, teacher, don't worry. Poop, 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 poop. You could just write the same thing over and over again. But I was like, no, I'll write a cohesive, like comprehensible, like chronological story.
The dream student.
And then that's what got me really into it. That's when I wrote my first story called Killer Cookie, and it was like a 12-chapter story about a cookie who lost his family to another family who was going to eat his family because he was a cookie, and he had to go and capture them. And he got so mad because by the time he got there, they were already being baked.
Right.
And then
You're bringing that here,
and we're rating it.
and we're gonna read it.
Yeah. This, I'm not even kidding.
Killer
It's
Cookie?
intense.
Yeah.
Killer Cookie.
Okay.
And this is in 5th grade. It's a pretty dark story because he ends up getting.
And get this, ready? My name is Dane Cook, and we're all here today. Serendipity. Boom. Well, there you have
It
it.
is actually.
That is probably because we're at an hour. Right?
Well, I have one last
Wait a
question
second.
because this is
You're good.
Yeah.
102. He always knows.
this is for you both. This is something I've wanted to ask. I actually have 2 questions, so I'm gonna need you guys for a little bit longer.
Finish it with this.
What is the difference? What is the balance for you guys when you're on stage? The balance between mean and funny, and has that changed over the years? Because for me, I love roasting my friends. I'm a troller. I love doing that. I think it's great, and I wouldn't do it to someone unless I feel like they know who I am and they know it's coming from a place of friendship. Where does that lie with you guys? Where's that line?
I think it's all about the setup. It's all about the context of what you're talking about.
Okay.
Because to some people, being mean is funny, but if the context is I'm saying something mean to my friend, and it because it's mean, because it's my friend, is why it's funny. I mean, let me give you a perfect real world example. We're talking about, Dane and I are chatting. We're talking on the thing because we're playing Warzone, and the world's opening back up. And then, they go, well, they're at like 25% capacity. And then Dane says, that's like your regular shows, Erik. So, you know what I mean? But
Got him.
You know what I mean? But then we said it in a way that it's like, okay, so that's how so your
But
friend,
I know you as well.
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't randomly say that to someone who you saw.
Right, so what I'm saying, context matters about why something's mean. So that's why in a stand-up set, your setup is important so people can establish, oh, I get why you're saying this. It doesn't always work.
Right.
But I think that's the answer to that.
Yeah. I think when people know that, like, I'm not a malicious person, but I can say pretty cutting things. And I have an obtuse sense of humor that sometimes I think twisted thoughts. I want to observe and report, but I think up stuff. But my heart's in the right place.
And that's all that matters.
I think that if you're a person that I think a person can go up and say something that everybody interprets as mean just because they might have anger or whatever is living inside them, and that's what you see.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're a good person and you're living a relatively, cool existence, not nefarious, I think people know that you're not looking to, make people feel bad, even though the comment might be.
But another
one doesn't
thing,
mean all. You can't just get generalized off that.
Well, I also
one
think
comment,
another thing that plays into it is, like, remember, this is a visual and it's a performance. You can say something, like, if we could say the same exact sentence and it's going to be taken differently, me saying it than you saying it.
Right.
Because
I'll get a laugh and you might not.
there it is. That was a good example.
I didn't want to do that. Why did I even do it? I
part
cared
of this.
more about your
I
point.
like this. We need him on more because I
cared
don't
more.
know how to roast him as well, and I like this.
That's why I'm bringing people
but
like
please
this.
finish that because I think that's important for people to understand this.
Because it's like because it's like your voice, you have one of those voices that's like the aliens are about to attack, and the voice that comes on the monitor is going to be your voice. It's going to be like, guys, get to section A, get to section,
right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
You have so sometimes you might be saying something and it gets lost in the interpretation because also, and just be real in this day and age, when you're a straight white male, you can't necessarily say some of the things that someone else could say.
Right.
Exact
Nor
same thing.
should you probably be.
Yeah.
Depends on what it is. But even sometimes
Unless it's your truth.
but it could be interpreted a certain way. So that's why, again, when you're doing a performance, a lot of it really is about, like, how am I setting this up? How am I what's the context of what's happening in the room?
Yeah. But a lot of young comics, the whole thing about being a young comedian is like being a little kid. A little kid wants to understand discipline, even though in the moment they don't think they do, but that they want to know, what are my boundaries? A young comedian wants to shock you. They want to take the air out of the room. They want to walk the room sometimes just not for the sake of, like, saying I bombed, but just to be like, how much chaos can I control here?
So
and
you
we all did that at the beginning. You know what I mean? Until you start to learn, like, oh, there's a more interesting way to tell jokes than having to rabble rouse the whole room.
Okay. Well, my second question, my last one, is, do you think that has to do with also hecklers, and does your comments change based on that? What is like a good heckler story?
Boy.
Do you, does like
this is a whole now. This is a different thing.
Yeah, this is part two.
Because
that's when you can get mean. I feel like because they're just disrespecting the set,
That's an
right?
interloper coming into your show.
No, but it's interesting that he says this though, about getting mean, because I've had times where it's like, man, I got too angry at this, because then you lose sight of like you're still at a show.
Yeah, people are paying to see.
You're still at a show. So even though this person is like, there's a way to handle that.
Yeah.
And if you're in a good spirit about it, there's a way to handle it to
of course.
really destroy this person, right? And have everybody still be like, oh, this is great.
And that's part of the show.
Yeah.
Because you also know that people are expecting, all right, now the comic is going to bury this person.
Yeah.
But how much do you bury them?
Yeah. And how happy are you that they just got buried? So it is a.
I've put scarlet letters on people. I've tattooed people. I've said things that 10 years later people wrote me and say, we still call him the nickname that you told us to based on how he disrupted the show. Or your level of crude in heckling, whatever you bring to me, I kind of do the math and go, all right, that was really fucked up. Now I'm going to go back something 10 times.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you're just drunk and you're like kind of silly, I'm going to make you.
You're
feel
gonna
bad.
you're gonna match the energy.
Well, sometimes though sometimes it depends on, like, let's say you just wrote this. You're doing a bit.
Right. And you're in the middle of it.
You're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And you need this sentence I'm about to say is going to tie this all together, and this place is going to be rocking and rolling.
Right.
And then some head has something to say.
Yeah.
A woman came to the Laugh Factory 2 weeks ago. I'm 5 minutes into a set and I'm already on the first wave. Like I'm like riding.
You're cruising.
I'm
happy.
Yeah. She puts her hand up, and I looked, and she went like this, and I said some stuff like, "This isn't a seminar," but I'm getting a little lost. But finally, I'm fascinated. I go, "But I want to know." I stop my bit. I go, "What is it?" She goes, "Do you have any other jokes?"
No.
And the whole crowd, the air goes out and everybody goes, oh, because they think, and I think at first, oh, she's saying this isn't funny and I don't like it.
Yeah.
She then muttered, I saw your show last week. I said, well, then the problem is you come to too many shows because these people haven't heard it. They didn't care. The audience was out for blood. They didn't know that she was saying it because she'd heard the joke and she wanted to hear something different. Mm-hmm. They thought she just didn't think I was funny.
Yeah.
So therefore I had to murder her with words.
Understandable.
Yeah, because the audience called for it, like Gladiator.
Yeah,
they were like,
"Yeah, and go,"
But that's the only time I'm in stand up. How long have you been in it? I'm 30 years.
2003.
Okay, so I'm 30 years into stand up, and except for those first 10, which definitely said things that were like I'd go home later and be like, oh, I can't believe I would say that on stage.
Yeah,
I was unbridled sometimes, but in my professional career, there's never moments that I'm looking to ruin somebody's day or
for sure.
But when my ego has been in check and in moments where I haven't been completely like happy in my own skin, I have people up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I've gotten mean.
I remember saying to her, I was in like Texas or something. This woman is like, and I said to her, you need to stop. I said like this.
You weren't the comedian anymore. You were the dad.
I was like,
you need to stop.
You need to stop because you're gonna be outside crying. You're gonna be outside crying. You need to stop. And sure enough, the bouncer came over to me later. It was like, and I felt bad the way he did it too, because he went, "Oh man, she was crying, man."
Like,
and there was a moment where I was like, "Oh, I can't do that."
Yeah.
You know why? I'm gonna tell you why, and then we'll go after this. We are like kung fu specialists, and if we're at a bar.
Are we allowed to say kung fu specialists?
Yeah, kung fu. Kung fu's a thing. Yeah, we're at kung fu. Look it up. And we're like, you're like a black belt in kung fu.
Let's go with taekwondo.
Okay, taekwondo. And you're at a bar, and some drunk guy or whatever is messing with you. Yep. You know you can.
Let's not say drunk guy. Let's call him inebriated gentleman.
This guy, Dane Cook, everybody.
I like that. I like.
I just want to be careful. I'm gonna get you in more hot water than you're already in from half the things that you've said on this.
And then like, you can't beat this person up. I think that verbally,
Yeah,
as
because
a comic,
it's illegal because your fists are like
you're
lethal weapons. Yeah,
I feel like
That's a
as
thing,
a
though.
comic,
It's true.
That's
I
the
feel like as a
thing.
comic we have a lethal weapon. And sometimes I tell them too. I go, "You're not gonna win this,
Right.
Just for the simple fact that I have a microphone and speakers. Like even that alone,
people who paid me to come here.
That alone, you're not
I
gonna
have the
win.
Constitution on my side with what I'm about to do to you
You
right
know
now.
what I mean? So then you like verbally kung fu them.
yeah.
It does happen, and when it does, there's from time to time you do look back and you go like, oh, I scorched that person maybe a little bit too much.
I
but
felt that.
yeah.
Well, listen, guys.
Thank you
go
guys
ahead,
for
Matt.
coming by.
Yeah, this has been
Gen2Gen.
Dane Cook. Thanks, dude. Pleasure
for
having
coming
you
by.
here.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, next time we'll just do all nerd stuff, maybe.
Yeah.
With the
I like
doctor?
that. With a doctor, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have
I was
like
gonna
a-
say
we
we
just
should have
have
a
like-
doctor and you come by, or
But he's just standing over here and sitting on a stool.
Yeah.
And he just goes,
Guys. Yeah, no.
he has a card that says
just
like,
goes, oof.
agree
He goes-
or disagree.
he just goes, oof, oof.
Well, whether you're watching or listening, we appreciate you guys stopping by to engage with us. Dane, thank you so much for coming by.
Absolutely, man.
Pleasure meeting you.
All right.
Yeah,
And
Oh, what are we doing with this? Okay. He shook his hand and we do
Well,
this.
because I was on the proper men shake right-handed.
right there, yeah.
And then if we did this,
I would be like,
if
I
we
have to
did-
go like this.
Well, thank you everybody for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, everything you got to do. We'll see you guys next week on Gen2Gen. And I think that's a wrap.
It's a wrap.